And that capacity that could in one context be a terrible force for evil can, in the proper context, be the most potent force for good. A good man has to be formidable. And partly what that means, as far as I can tell, is that you have to be able to say no. And no means, like, I thought a lot about no, working as a clinician, because I did a lot of strategic counseling with my clients in a lot of extremely difficult situations. And I learned to take apart what no meant. And also when dealing with my own children, because I used no sparingly, because it's a powerful weapon, let's say. But I meant it. And with my kids, what it meant was, if you continue that pattern of behavior, something you do not like will happen to you with 100% certainty. And when that's the case and you're willing to implement it, you don't have to do it very often. With regards to monstrosity, it's like weak men aren't good. They're just weak. That's Nietzsche's observation. That's partly, again, why he was tempted to place the will to power, let's say, and to deal with that notion in a manner that, when it was tied with the revaluation of all values, was counterproductive. And counterproductive in the final analysis. It's not like there wasn't something to what he was driving at. Formidable men are admirable, and don't mess with them. Douglas Murray's a good example of that. He's a rather slight guy, but he's got a spine of steel, and there's no more than a bit of what's a monstrous in him. And Jocko Willink is like that, and Joe Rogan is like that, and you're like that.
But there's a different level. I mean, if you look, to me, Churchill might represent the thing you're talking about, but World War II, Hitler would not be stopped without Stalin.
Well, I wonder, yes.
And if I may insert into this picture of complexity, Hitler would have not stopped until he enslaved and exterminated the entirety of the Slavic people. The Jewish people, the Slavic people, the Gypsies, everybody who's not Aryan. But then Stalin, in the mass rape of German women by the Red Army as they marched towards Berlin, is a kind of manifestation, the full monstrosity that a person can be.
You can easily be in a situation. You can easily, unfortunately, find yourself in a situation where all you have in front of you are a variety of bad options. That's partly why, if you have any sense, you try to conduct yourself very carefully in life, because you don't want to be in a position where you've made so many mistakes that all the options left to you are terrible. And so you said, well, was it necessary to ally with Stalin? It's like, well, it's very difficult to second guess the trajectory of something as complex as World War II, but we could say casually, at least as Westerners have in general, that alliance was necessary. Now, I think the mistake that the West made in the aftermath of World War II was in not dealing as forthrightly with the catastrophes of communism as an ideology as we did with fascism. And that's especially true of the intellectuals in the universities. I mean, it was very common when I was teaching both at Harvard and at the University of Toronto, for the students in my personality class, where we studied Solzhenitsyn, who's actually an existential psychologist in many ways, and a deep one. None of them knew anything about the Soviet atrocities. None of them knew anything about what happened in Ukraine and the death of 6 million productive people. Had no idea that the communists killed tens of millions of people in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution.
They know even less about Mao and the Great Leap
Forward. Right. Which some estimates are 100 million people. Now, when your error bars are in the tens of millions, well, that's a real indication of a cataclysm, and nobody knows how many people died from direct oppression or indirect in the Soviet Union. 20 million seems like a reasonable estimate. Solzhenitsyn's upper bound was higher than that.
And how do you measure the intellectual output that was suppressed and killed off? The number of intellectuals, artists and writers that were put into the
productive
gulags.
Farmers, for that matter, and anyone who was willing to tell the truth. Right, absolutely. So, yeah, catastrophic. And so I think the West's failure wasn't so much allying with Stalin. I mean, it was Douglas MacArthur who wanted to continue. He thought we should just take the Soviets out after the Second World War. And they removed him from any position of authority where such a thing might be made possible. And people were tired. But was MacArthur wrong? Well, he certainly wasn't wrong in his insistence that Stalin was as big a monster as Hitler, or bigger. So the valorization of the leftist proclivity, the radical leftist proclivity, is the sin of the West, I think, more intensely than allying with Stalin.